Hello YouTube, back with the next My Little Pony review, and today I'm reviewing the bees from Bumbleland. Of course, yes, I've probably noticed I'm wearing a new shirt, the shirt from the 2017 Eclipse. I'll review it a little bit more after the review here. And yes, I did see the Eclipse, so I'll get into that after the review. But the bees from Bumbleland, of course, they take up the first 10 episodes of the My Little Pony TV series, the G1 TV series. And they proved to be quite a threat. I mean, yes, one could argue that, okay, yeah, the ponies are just weak. But you have to remember the Flutter ponies are the ones that took down the Smoos back in the movie. In the very end of the movie. I mean, it took them a while. They just go, okay, boom, we're done. It took time to actually get them to work. There was a lot of stuff they had to do, but it proved they were the only answer to get the Smoos out. So they're not entirely. And of course, this shows the weaknesses of the Flutter ponies, that they're not some overpowered goddesses that can do whatever they want and nothing can get in their way. And of course, it's hard to say whether the bees are, you could probably argue that the bees are probably a little weaker than that. They couldn't steal the Sunstone for themselves. They kind of collaborated. But arguably, I think the other way around is probably true. The witches of Volcano of Gloom were probably the ones that are weak in this case, because they got stuck in situations that they probably should have figured out themselves. I mean, they were already beaten once by the Flutter ponies back in the movie, and then here they are again later. He ended up calling to his which is mostly Hydia, ends up calling to her parents. Yes, using that are in portraits, kind of brings them out to kind of get an idea of how to further this, and that's what leads into the whole mess that gets Flutter Valley into looking rather bleak. You know, not nowhere near as colorful, because the Sunstone is basically their main source of power. And once it's gone, they don't really have a whole lot. But of course, it backfires on the bees in ways they didn't anticipate. Although, let's face it, they didn't know a whole lot about it. They just know they wanted it, so that it was sort of an agreement with the witches. So, okay, we get you the Sunstone, you help us, so we can have Flutter Valley the way we want it. So, of course, they probably didn't fully understand the downsides to using the Sunstone in the sun. And let's face it, I don't think any of us did. Ponies may not have understood that well either. They just knew it was something they rely on for their for Flutter Valley to maintain its beauty. So, but as for the characters themselves, we get into the Queen, who's obnoxious and bossy and doesn't really do anything, just likes to take nectar out of flowers and stuff like that. Little hench bees, if you want to call them that, do follow up, but eventually they rebel against her. And that can leave her with nothing. I think she does become nicer in the end, but it's hard to tell what started that. Why did she start going out of her way to attack Flutter Valley? I mean, why didn't she say no to the... Why did she even want the Sunstone? Yeah, we kind of sort of know why she wanted the Sunstone, because that was to end up making the area around her, her area actually start to bloom, because it was actually just as dead as Flutter Valley became when the Sunstone was taken away. Sunstone was proved to be a crucial part in both their sides of the issue. But then you wonder, okay, why did she try something else? It's obviously proving she's not that smart. She's obviously rather greedy, as we found out, I think Sting was the one that pointed out, like, she's greedy, she's lazy. And they rebelled against her and said, no, we're not doing it anymore. But even then, even while they were under her, actually doing her bidding, they were actually still showing that they had a little... I think Sting was the one that basically was the first to, with the eye patch. Knew full well that he got a bit conflicted because he wanted to help Morning Glory out. For lack of a better name, Morning Glory didn't seem to be consistently her name, of the green Flutter pony that was trapped in a cage. He was mostly guarding her at the time, but he also apparently couldn't fly. It was something which is kind of strange, though, when you consider the fact that these are bees you're talking about, but it's obvious he didn't get the training. Although I guess if you spend your time mostly on the ground, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of flying time anyway, but it's probably helpful. I don't know. But either way, it shows us they're not always as bad as they seem to be. I think Pointer, which is the other bee that was kind of mostly loyal to the queen bee, seemed to be the most loyal to him and wasn't the one to go against her either because he was afraid or because he was truly loyal to her and didn't want to, wanted to make sure her plans wouldn't go as smoothly. He may have had the same mindset. Like, okay, we'll do exactly what you say because it's exactly how we feel, sort of deal. But I mean, it's an interesting concept. We never really see them again in the TV show. We have not seen them since then. With Friendship is Magic, I don't think we will, and I presume they will probably ruin them. Not that they're not really my favorite characters in general, but the fact that they take up 10 parts of the show really goes to show you just what they did. I mean, the writers really gave them storyline to work with. I mean, 10 parts, they're really 10-minute episodes. You can argue it's probably more like 9 or even 8 because of the intro and the closing. So it's more like 9, I think, probably in terms of episode length. If you're going to call them episodes, they're only 10 minutes long. So short episodes, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, they're sort of interesting. I mean, of course, they're not perfect. I mean, they did their job exactly as they planned, and it worked. It got them through, about 8 parts of the storyline without a problem. Of course, even when they did, it wasn't just an automatic flip of the switch for the Flutter Valley. It just kind of slowly deteriorated over time. And of course, having them realize that the Sunstone in the sun for a long period of time was a bad idea, not only because it fried all their hard work, it had an added bonus in that the Flutter Ponies were basically trapped inside a ever shrinking prison, if you will. The little honeycomb they had set up was actually coming apart. It was actually melting in the hot sun. Of course, and then when the Sunstone got dropped in the ground, they couldn't get it out because it was so hot. They actually had to wait. They had to either cool it down themselves, or they had to wait for it to cool down, via nighttime. But yeah, the fact that they all work together, I mean, this is what happens when you work together. You get a nice team together, they do their job, and things go generally as planned. It's kind of a concept I think we need to re-look at even today, because most people don't do that. They just think, oh, I can get away with it. I can go alone. It means you're screwed if you're, I think time and time again we see in people getting injured and having no one else around to help them. You kind of get screwed out of that. It's like up to you. But yeah, I mean, even in the more recent Hurricane Harvey incident that was been plaguing since like Friday, officially probably Thursday night into Friday, that when you come together and you got a whole bunch of people together, things end up doing better. Now, granted, they're not done yet. They're not out of the woods yet because they still have all the flood waters and stuff like that. But it just goes to show you that if there's strength in numbers, generally, as long as people are all willing together, all on the same page, or they're helping out, doing what they're supposed to do. So yeah, that's my review on the bees from Bumbleland. Now on to the Eclipse. I'll show the shirt a little bit better. This was mostly bought for the Eclipse. I mean, I did have the glasses, but of course they don't last very long. Apparently, the ones that I have were good for only 3 years. So, despite the fact that I think even the Weather Channel had stated that keep them for next time around, I don't think you can do that. I think I would argue that probably most, if not all, of the glasses that are legit in any case will say dispose of them after a certain amount of time. That's probably because the sun actually probably does damage to the actual filters that are used for the glasses. Damage you probably can't see right away. So, and then with the next eclipse being 7 years from now, at least in the U.S., it's too late for that. That pair is useless. You may as well just. But of course, you're not totally screwed out if you didn't get to see them that way. And it was the old-fashioned way of doing it, probably the preschool way of doing it, with the cardboard and the aluminum foil. I've kind of read up on that. I haven't actually put it together myself. Give me a matter of time. I mean, we may have just been lucky. I mean, we usually always here in New Jersey, we almost always get screwed out of some celestial event. You didn't get to see the transit of Venus. Not that that's a big. I mean, yeah, it may be one of rare events, but there's not a lot to see. It's a little speck of black going across the disk of the sun for hours and hours and hours. And that just goes. And speaking of hours, the fact that this eclipse lasts a lot longer than you'd think it would. Despite the fact that the moon is moving at like 1,800 miles an hour, you're not going to see it moving at that speed. You're going to see it moving much more slowly. It's going to seem to move much more slowly. you'd have to wait, kind of do what I did. And what I did is I would take a peek and then wait, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, wherever I felt was long enough, and take another look and see it progress slowly across the sun. Of course, I got to see the eclipse. It wasn't a full eclipse. It was more like 78 or 80%, but it was enough that I was actually excited when this first bite of the sun was the moon was starting to take a bite out of the sun. Of course, it was hot outside when I went to do it, so I had to kind of take a peek out in the sun and then come back in the shade where it was, where it was at least a little cooler, maybe not a whole lot. And eventually, when the eclipse was mostly covered, I mean, we got the crescent on one, we got the crescent on one side, on the left side, and on the top, then on the other side. So that's how we got it. But it was pretty clear. I mean, the clouds didn't come in until, they didn't really threaten until probably the eclipse was, I was going to probably go inside anyway. I wasn't planning on staying for the whole eclipse, but I ended up staying for about 2/3 of it. But then, this is mostly because the eclipse is pretty well the same. Once you get past totality, it's exactly the same, just in reverse. Totality was probably a little bit more exciting, obviously, because we got the Bailey's bead, which is little specks of light that you see just before the eclipse actually, till you get totality. That's because of the moon's surface and all the craters on top. They're kind of like bouncing over that, I think is how that works. And of course, you got the diamond ring, which you can see on my shirt here. That's the diamond ring right there. But it's a lot more spectacular, obviously, on the actual, when you actually see it. And it was so spectacular for a whole bunch of people. They were actually very emotional about it, from what I understand. I'm not quite sure why. They may not be sure why either, but I don't know how I would feel if I had seen the eclipse in full. I mean, probably been much more spectacular, as I said already. But I mean, yeah. I mean, this is a pretty decent shirt. I mean, this is mostly bought before the eclipse. I mean, I looked a lot online. This was the one that seemed like it kind of caught my eye. It seemed like it was a little more spectacular than some of the other shirts. A little bit more realistic too. And granted, yes, the light around the sun is. This looks more like an annular eclipse, but since it's got the diamond ring, it's pretty solid. It's pretty close. I mean, it's pretty darn close. I mean, I've actually got a picture of the actual eclipse on my wall here, which I guess I can show off later, but I don't really want to show it off now. I mean, I guess I could. I don't know. It'd be a little difficult to show you, but it's a pretty awesome. It's a pretty decent event. I mean, it was really rare, especially for us. I mean, we're not going to get an eclipse of that nature that goes all the way across the United States for, what did they say? It was a long time. It was like, I forget where it was, like 40, 50 years. No, it was like 60 years or something like that. Long time from now. So if you missed out on it, well, you can't. I mean, you could have gone all that way, going across the country, all the way to Oregon or wherever the totality was, and gotten cloud cover. And you've been screwed out of both, gas mileage, money, and a good show. So, but obviously it worked out for a lot of people. A lot of people got to see it. They got to see the totality. And the unfortunate thing is you don't get to see it, I mean, as close as you see here. It's not that big when you actually view it. It's much further away. But it still looks pretty cool, especially, I mean, you get to see a lot of it. As long as you get to see probably at least 50%, you're probably going to get a decent show out of it. And one thing to note is that when you actually are watching, you pay attention to how animals and insects around you react to it. I mean, I've noticed there were several of them kind of went to sleep. I heard crickets about halfway through, maybe. The temperature did drop. It went from when I first went out, it was like 88 degrees. I feel like it may have been just a little bit of a, going a little too high because it was out in the sun. The sensor is pretty well out in the sun, so I think that may have played a little bit, but it's still, when I got back inside, it was around 81 degrees. So it was a fairly decent drop, and I'm sure it would have been a lot more obvious. I think I noticed a little bit of darkness. It felt it was a little bit darker when I actually went out, when we actually got to totality. Couldn't quite tell. May have been just, I mean, really, it probably felt more like a little more than the sun going behind a cloud, really. That's kind of sort of what it was. And totality, I'm sure, I've seen videos of how, like, time lapses of the event occurring, and it gets really dark when you get in totality. I mean, pitch black, as if it's completely nighttime for 2 minutes. I mean, it seems like a short amount of time, but when not a lot's happening, it's a long time. It feels a lot longer than it actually is. But, I mean, the fact that even at 1,800 miles an hour, it was still taking roughly an hour or so to cross the sun from each perspective. So, I mean, the problem for me, I managed to get lucky in the fact that I wasn't sure when it was actually going to come at me. I mean, totality, I kind of knew where that was, or like, the maximum part of the eclipse was, but I didn't know when it was going to start. I managed to get out just within the last couple minutes before it was starting, so I got lucky. I managed to find a website that actually was showing where it was in my area, so that was pretty cool. And it proved to be a decent show. I mean, it was certainly a long event. It's probably something I'm going to remember for quite a while. I mean, it's still kind of ingrained in my head, at least where it kind of was about halfway across the disk of the sun. It's an event worth watching. I mean, you still have, I was lucky to also get a pair of glasses within time as well, because, I mean, most of them had sold out. It was all the bulk ones available, like 500 for like $80 or $100 or whatever it was. And ours did, and the one I had didn't even ship right away. So it didn't. It went out. It managed to arrive on Sunday. So we were very lucky to get it in time. Otherwise, I would have been left to make the mock glasses and use that. But luckily, I don't think it takes that long. Probably a minute, maybe a little longer if you're a little, doesn't quite register right away. But it's a decent show. It was a decent show. It would have been a lot better if it had been in totality. Okay, I guess I will show you the eclipse, the picture I have on the wall of the eclipse. Give me a second here to get it up there, because you probably have never seen it before. It's pretty decent. Let's see if I can get it to you. That's the eclipse. I think I ended up getting it at the Northeast Astronomy Forum, or NEAF, back in the day, several years back. Got a couple pictures around my room, but there's totality. So if you ever want to see it, that's kind of the idea, and you can see a little bit of the sun around the disk. So yeah, that's my review on the okay. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.